The image of the victim still haunts anyone familiar with her story. It happened here in Saskatoon, in a time when murder still seemed to be exceptional. It is 1961, the eve of a visit from a rising star in country music. The highlight of a local fair will be performances by Johnny Cash. To promote his concert, the singer has organized a beauty contest and composed a special song to be dedicated to the winner.
By the light of the morning,
the girl in Saskatoon.
I'm freezing, but I'm burning for the girl in Saskatoon.
The girl in Saskatoon was Alexandra Wiwcharuk, and it wasn't the first time she'd won a beauty crown. She had looks and personality and a profession, and she was on the threshold of an age that would redefine youth and the roles of women in the world. But fate had a darker destiny in store for the girl in Saskatoon. She grew up near Yorkton, where she was the youngest of 10 kids in a farm family.
She was always the happiest kid around, and I think maybe because she was the last child in our family and Mom and Dad sort of glowed over her.
Her eldest sister, Marie Moss, remembers her energy, a sense of fun.
She was full of life and she would dance. She was always happy. She was very special.
They were only little girls in 1962. Her many nieces ranged in age from 3 to 11. Their aunt became a vibrant presence in their lives. She was the relative who, even then, embodied glamour. She was the perfect grown-up, an independent woman who shared their sense of fun. Her eldest niece, Lorraine, remembers an outing in a car and mischief with a roll of toilet paper.
We unraveled this roll of toilet paper and got it out the window, and she's just, had the radio going and singing, and this toilet paper got longer and longer, and it's flapping in the wind. Next thing we know, the siren is behind us. And she pulls over, and this police goes behind her, and he looks in, and he says, "Are these all your kids?" It was so funny, I'll never forget it.
Author Sharon Butala grew up in Saskatoon and went to the same high school as Alexandra.
My first specific memory is in grade 11 when we were all in a drama club. I can remember girls calling her Little Al.
After high school, they went their separate ways, but it wasn't the last Sharon Butala would hear of Little Al.
There was only 50 in our class, so we got to know each other quite well.
Alice Hilburn went through nursing school with Alexandra Wiwcharuk. After graduating, they got jobs at Saskatoon City Hospital, and they lived here with 2 other nurses. Alice Hilburn remembers a warm Friday evening just before the Victoria Day weekend in 1962. It was May 18th.
Alex borrowed a blouse of mine, so I presumed that she was going out, doing something. I do think that she was going to go for a little walk. It was a lovely time of the year.
She lived a short walk from City Hospital, where she was scheduled for duty at 11:30 that night. She bought stamps, mailed letters. The South Saskatchewan River, then as now, a magnet for restless young people on a warm spring evening. And on that evening, she paused here for a quiet, private moment. Shortly afterwards, she vanished. Hugh Carlton was dating her at the time. That night, he'd hoped to see her, if only briefly.
I phoned Alex's residence to see if I could drive her to work that night, but when I phoned, she'd gone out to mail a letter.
She was a dedicated nurse, scrupulous about punctuality, but that night she failed to show up for duty at the hospital.
I think I'd already gotten into bed when the phone rang, and it was the hospital, and she was supposed to be on duty that evening. And at the time I thought, oh, she's not paid attention to time.
By morning, Alice Hilburn was becoming panicky.
I knew 100% that there was something really bad wrong.
People who didn't know Alexandra very well assumed she'd just gone off on a wild weekend. The report of her disappearance went to Saskatoon's morality squad. This was Saskatoon, where bad things never happened, and it was springtime. The promise of summertime was in the air. Young people were on the move. Saturday morning, her unsuspecting boyfriend left town to spend the weekend with friends, Hugh Carlton.
We hadn't been in Waskesiu very long before the RCMP came by to talk to me to see if Alex was with me or whether I knew anything more about where she might be.
The long spring weekend slipped by, the city for the most part unaware of an escalating dread among the friends of Alexandra Wiwcharuk. They knew she would never have just run away from her responsibilities. By the end of the weekend, the missing nurse was a news story. Wilf Popov, a 20-year-old reporter, had a hunch that this was about more than just another runaway.
This wasn't your typical missing person. This was not the type of woman who would stay overnight at a boyfriend's. I mean, it just didn't fit.
The newspaper stories grew more ominous, but still the police and public seemed to expect that, like most disappearances, this one would end on a happy note. The last anyone had seen of her, she was walking here, presumably making her way home. A week went by. Police used boats to search the river, a dog to search the river bank. They found nothing.